On today's episode, we'll talk about starting out in editing, who the star of the show really is, ER, SEAL Team, and of course, watching Alan Arkin and James Caan throw things off the roof of the commissary. Just a little bit of business before we start. There may be a curse word here or there in this episode, so please listen responsibly. As always, our website, theop.io, is up and chock full of tips, tricks, and gooey operator goodness. Make sure to check out the breakdown, where the best operators in the biz explain shots they have done, the musings, where we discuss everything from quick tips to larger concepts of storytelling, the blocking, the answers, the images, and so much more. If you're enjoying this podcast, please follow us, write a review, share us with your parents, and talk us up around the water cooler with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy the op. Thanks for listening.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll.
Rolling. Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark.
And camera set. And action.
Hello and welcome back to the Op Podcast, the podcast where we talk about operating and the art of visual storytelling. I am Dave Kamaides, and talking with someone who was really instrumental in my career, and I learned a tremendous amount from, and I suspect we're going to learn a tremendous amount from today, hopefully. Director-producer Christopher Chulack, some of his credits, but not all by any means. SEAL Team, Shameless, Southland, ER, Third Watch, that's where we kind of ran into each other. And I'm not going to say them all, but DGA Directorial Achievement for 1996, ER, Hell and High Water, which is considered one of the top ER episodes. If you haven't seen it, you should. Another in 1997, nominated in 1998 and 2005. He also got with John Wells the DGA Diversity Award. And on top of that, just as a little aside, 11 Emmy nominations and 2 wins. And interestingly, 3 for film sound editing, including Fantasy Island, which I was probably not allowed to stay up to watch, and Police Story, which I thought was kind of cool. So all in all, he's won 7 awards and nominated for 13. A really, really smart filmmaker and storyteller, and someone I haven't seen for a long time. So I'm really excited. Chris, thanks for jumping on the podcast.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me, Dave.
we just got through with Chris telling me that he's notoriously shy in front of the camera. So by the way, we're not recording video here. So just so you know, we're
Great.
good.
Great.
So Chris, tell me your story. How'd you get into the film industry?
Well, it's a kind of a long story. I'll try to chop it up a little bit for you. So I graduated from high school when I was 17, and I didn't really want to go to college. I just wasn't. I was a little bit of a rebellious kid and whatnot. Anyway,
was this L.A.? Did you grow up in L.A.?
Born and raised in East L.A., graduated from high school at Cathedral High School under the shadow of Dodger Stadium.
Okay.
So I did a couple jobs. I worked at a gas station. Then I was driving a truck for Day and Night Motor Parts, and I did that for a year and a half. And then my dad was like getting mad at me, like, what are we doing here, kid? You got to go to school, man. I said, I don't want to go to school. I'm not ready for school. His youngest brother, my Uncle Fred, was a film editor.
Okay.
So I called, and I was always afraid of him. He was the youngest Chulack of 7 boys, and he was a Marine and tough guy, great guy, love him. And I called him up, and I said, Uncle Fred, I said, what is this film editing thing you do? What is it? He says, why? Yeah. He says, why are you asking? I said, because my dad's, on me about going to college and this and that and wants me to be a lawyer. And he says, go to school. We hung up the phone. So, I waited a little bit, meaning a week, and I called him back and I bugged him, I pushed him a little bit. He says, all right, you want to know what I do? He says, what are you doing Thursday? I said, well, I'm driving a truck. He says, well, you can't drive a truck. You pick me up. He lived in Glendale. You pick me up and you take me to the studio.
Nice.
I said, oh, yeah. So I said, okay. I picked him up at 8 o'clock in the morning. We drove to Radford Studios, CBS, Radford.
Yeah.
And he was one of 3 editors on Hawaii Five-0.
No way. Wow.
The original one.
And you had no idea.
No, I just knew it was film editing.
Yeah. Oh,
so we drive onto the lot. One of the first I've never been on a movie, a lot. one of the first people I saw was Mary Tyler Moore. And I was like, oh, my goodness. Yeah. So anyway, he takes me upstairs to the cutting rooms, and they were cutting Y50. I think it was the last season of Gunsmoke, or there was a bunch of shows that they were cutting up there. And go into his editing room. He says, Chris, this is Greg Wong, my assistant. Chris is my nephew. And he takes his shirt off, and he has a V-neck T-shirt he always wore. And he pulled up a chair for me to sit behind him, and we sat, he was sitting at the Moviola and everything, and he showed me click, how it works. And that's so
cool.
Yes, that was my introduction to film. So
wow.
Anyway, I did that for a couple of months, and it was fun because I got to go to lunch, go to Dupart's on Ventura Boulevard, and I met a lot of the other editors, and they would say, "Come on, kid, come on in." So that was special, and I feel very fortunate to have had that in my life.
Yeah. And
so I did that, like I said, for a couple of months. He in the interim, he says, go down on Sunset Boulevard, local 776. I think it was the Editors Guild. He filled out a form, like an application. And I did. So then I didn't do that for much longer. And then about a year later, not a year, 6 months, I get a phone call. And there's a guy on the other phone who says, I'm whatever his name was from local 776. He says, is this Christopher Chulack? I said, yeah. He says, there's a posting. Everybody on the roster is working. There's a posting at Columbia Television for a job for delivery, a delivery boy. I said, okay.
Yeah.
He said, you want to go for the interview? I said, yeah. So I go down and I meet with a guy named Chuck Silvers. He's the head of post-production for Columbia TV. And I walk in there. He says, you're Chulack? Yeah. He says, can you ride a bike? And I was like, excuse me? He says, can you ride a bike?
I love this.
Can you ride a bike? And I said, yes, sir. He says, okay. He says, I got an old man that can't do it anymore. If you can ride a bike, you got the job. I said, what's the job?
Wow.
He says, delivering film, dailies, and movies to the 22 projection rooms, and it was at Warner Brothers, the Warner Brothers lot. The Columbia Television shared with Warner Brothers. So
wow.
I come to work. I park my little Volkswagen. They give me a bike with a big basket on it. I go meet Sam Wilson, who is the head of shipping, and Johnny Burlack, who was the guy that couldn't ride the bike anymore. He was, just. And gave me a map where all the projection room, and I delivered film all day to various projection rooms, and then got them back and put the movies downstairs in storage, and helped the assistant editors pick up their dailies, and so after a little while, a couple of months, they had to Taft-Hartley me into the Editors Guild.
Okay, can you explain to people what that is who might not know?
The Editors Guild is a union, and everybody was working, but I can't not be a member of the union and collect a check. So I got into the union, got my card as an apprentice. Now I'm called an apprentice film editor.
Okay, yeah,
and I got to tell you, for me, money wasn't bad. It's a union job,
That's great.
And that's kind of how I started. So
what year is this?
1942. No, no, I think
it feels that way.
Yeah, it feels that way. I don't.
It's like 70s.
Yeah,
70 something.
Yes, yeah, it's 70 something. 70.
Okay. Well, I'm just thinking Mary Tyler Moore. It's probably like 76, 77, something like that.
Yeah,
right?
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Wait. Hey, let me ask you a question. Was Mary Tyler Moore spinning and throwing her hat up in the air? Nobody's going to get that.
She was mad. She was throwing it on the ground.
It was the part that they cut out.
Yeah, the part that they cut out. Anyway,
so wait, you got in as an assistant editor? So are you getting?
No, I got in
job
as an apprentice.
An apprentice.
Yeah.
So what jobs is that? Is that like a trainee kind of thing?
Well, the assistant editors would send the dailies down to the coding machine. That's where you put a code on the edge of the 35 millimeter picture and the 35 millimeter single stripe track. That's how they would sync up their dailies.
Sync it up.
Yeah,
okay.
Right. So it's a little number that you line up the numbers, overlap them, and then you're going to be in sync.
So it comes straight to them from the lab. It basically gets processed. They send it there. The number goes on, and then it goes to editing, so they can sync it up and start doing their thing.
I'm downstairs, and I was taught how to code film, and you kind of work for the assistants, and So that's how that happened, and then eventually I did that for a little while, and it was fascinating to me. To be on a lot. And, back then in those days, the lots were like family. I mean, it was like a little company store. Everybody, all the secretaries and people that have worked there for years and wardrobe and, they all knew each other and they ate at the commissary. And it was very,
it's so great.
It was kind of sweet in a way.
Yeah, but it's like a little town, right?
Exactly.
It's like a little walled town, right? Yeah, so would you go to the commissary and see like actors from TV shows? Were they in there as well?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I remember being there. I don't know where it was in my journey, but I mean, like, I remember being there in the commissary when I looked, and then Richard Dreyfuss was in there, remember that scene where he got burned or where like he had
got burned?
Center? Yeah. He was in there eating his lunch. I remember seeing. So great. I remember seeing Alan Arkin and James Caan on the commissary roof throwing shit at people. They were doing Freebie and the Bean. Remember that movie, Freebie and the Bean?
Yeah, sure. That's so great.
So cool. It was, and I knew all these editors. I not only film editing, but sound editing and looping. All those guys worked in the editorial building, so I knew all these men. They were all much, much older than me, and it was quite an education. So I became an apprentice film editor. Then I became an assistant sound editor. So we would build the units. The sound editors would pick the sound effects. We would build them and then take them to the dubbing or mixing stage so that they could mix the show. And then from there, this guy Dick Friedman asked me to come to work for him, and he was the head of looping. So he looped all the actors, for all the shows. There was like, I don't know, Police Story, Policewoman, Nakia, David Gerber, we'll get to in a little while, was the president of Columbia Television. Okay. And so it was phenomenal. So I learned a lot, and I'm trying to think what came first, the looping or the assistant editing.
Wait, when you say looping, do you mean ADR?
ADR.
Looping. Yeah, I was going to say they don't really call it that anymore, but I thought that's what it was. So it's when they go in and watch it, and they've got to redo the lines or whatever. Yeah.
Automated dialogue replacement.
Yeah. But looping sounds better.
Yeah. So I would we would go to dailies, and everybody would be at dailies, David Gerber included, and met him, very interesting dude, very powerful guy. So I became a looping editor, a looping assistant, and then a looping editor. So I got to deal with actors. Dick Friedman would say, "You go ahead and loop Angie Dickinson." I'm like, "Really? Okay, yeah." So yeah.
And so when you're doing that, are the directors in there with you, or are you just
occasionally? Sometimes they would come, but most of the time, no.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So because that's kind of amazing, and actually, it's like an easy way in to learn how to work with actors, I guess, because they just want to get in and out and whatever.
It's absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I would learn that, and I was pretty intimidated at the beginning. I remember a moment where we were doing Fantasy Island.
Yeah.
And you know how Aaron Spelling would have all these old stars come through and appear with Ricardo. And it was great. And so the name is the Straw Man, the Scarecrow in Wizard of Oz. Ray Bolger.
Yeah, Ray Bolger.
So Ray Bolger was going to come in, and he had done on Fantasy Island. He had to loop a couple of lines. Yeah. And here he comes, this very erudite, dapper man on stage. Cool. I'm on stage, and back then it was big screen, like a movie theater, and mixers behind the glass. And he comes in and he says, "Is this the place?" I said, "Yes, Mr. Bolger." Walk up to the mic. There's a stool, there's a microphone. I'm sitting at a desk. And he said, here's your lines, and that's the first line. Play it for him so he can hear it. And then he puts the earplug on his ear, and he hears beep, beep, beep on what would be the third beep. That's when he should start talking, correct?
Yeah.
So he does the first line. And stop. I said, okay, play it back, please. And he played it back. It was good. And he says, did you like that, Chris? To me. And I'm thinking to myself, how the fuck how did I get here? This guy is the scarecrow,
awesome.
And he's asked a 23-year-old or 22-year-old, whatever I was, if it was okay for him. This guy's got 50 years in the business. I mean, like,
that's amazing.
Literally thinking, how did I get here? I mean, in a good way. And you know what, Dave, I tell you, I'm going to write a book. And it's going to be the title of the book is, because I had this experience my whole career. I still do. Yeah. And I remember thinking in the moment, like, how did I get here?
That's so great. But by the way, I will tell you something. My personal opinion is because you have that ethos is why you're there, because it's the people, I think, who go, well, I totally deserve this, who probably burn out more and burn their bridges. You know what I mean? There's an ethos there. That's fantastic. Out of curiosity, I have many questions about this, but first of all, this is pre-computer. Forget about pre-internet. So, Ray Bolger, because people are like, hey, he was a scarecrow, or you know him. I mean, was he enough of a name that people knew him back then? I can't think of anything before, our experience.
Yeah. No, I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a little bit of both,
Yeah. And then it just occurred to me. So wait, so this is obviously film. So you're saying it's actually a full screen that they're looking at, but you're inside of a booth for sound reasons. And is it called looping because the scene is basically on a loop that's just playing over and over for them?
The way they used to do it before ADR was they would literally get the track, make it into a loop, put a little space in there, and the actor would just say it over and over and over again.
Wow.
And then ADR really kind of changed the whole.
Yeah. Until 22-year-old Chris Chulack said, "We got it. We're good. Let's move on."
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's cool.
Yeah. So
who came in there that totally intimidated you?
A couple. Until I got to know her, because she was Angie Dickinson. And when I came in down and sat at the desk, and I was going to be the guy called in sync, as they say, she says, "Chris, you look handsome sitting there." Man, I must have turned the shade of red, man. And then
that's awesome,
right? And then probably Natalie Wood.
Oh wow!
Notice that they're women.
Yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it. Yeah. That's really cool. But that must have been really cool to sit there and see these people who were, huge on the screen, just standing in front of you doing their thing.
It was cool.
Yeah. It's funny because you were saying Fantasy Island about people, the actors who sort of like had the careers and whatever. I always used to think that like they'd go on the Love Boat and do the episode, and then it would pull up and drop them off at Fantasy Island, and they'd do that episode because that's kind of what it was, right?
Yeah. No, there was the whole You're exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah. So how long did you do that?
So I did that for a couple of years. I mean, I moved up pretty good. I was really, I was a sound editor, and we won an Emmy for a police story that we did, and
amazing.
I was lucky. I learned a lot, and I really enjoyed it. And the people were great, all the editors, all the guys. So that was a couple of years. Again, I lose track of time, and then, and so I got to know everybody on the lot, and all the producers on all these television shows, and this and that, and. Columbia did a miniseries called From Here to Eternity. It was a remake of the movie. Uh-huh. William Devane, Kim Basinger, Natalie Wood, Will Sampson. Anyway, I worked on that as a sound editor and loop editor. And then shortly thereafter, I was walking to the commissary, and Mr. Carl Pingator, who was the line producer of that miniseries, Harv Bennett and Harris Cattleman were the executive producers. I hear, Chulack. And I look, and it's Mr. Pingator. He says, come here. He says, we're going to do a regular series from here to eternity. It's going to be NBC picked it up. He says, you want to be my associate producer? And I was like, yeah, I guess.
Did you know what that meant?
Yeah, well, that's it. I said, well, I don't really know. Like, he says, don't worry about it. He says, associate producer in those days, you spent a little, you were able to go to the set to take them clips if they had to shoot an insert or do a reshoot. Yeah. So you had a little more license to go on the set.
I got you.
He says, all right, today at 5 o'clock, I'll come get you, and we're going to go meet Harv. We'll talk to Harv and Harris. So I did. We went to the executive building up there and walked in the office. They were already having cocktails, and walked in there. They kind of knew my face because I was around the looping stage, and they would see me.
Yeah.
And we never talked about the job. It's like, okay, I'll see you. We're starting to shoot. I said, okay. So that's how that happened. So then I became an associate producer, and and that exposed me to more time on the set, and really kind of watching the director's work, what goes on, talking to the ADs, learn what a board is, like the production board, and so that was my introduction, which made me eventually a line producer.
But you're still a sound editor and an associate producer at that point. You're just associate producer.
Associate producer, and something, I had to take a cut in salary.
Oh wow! I did. Was that ever a thought? Like maybe I shouldn't be doing this?
No.
Okay.
No, I was at Disneyland.
Yeah. All right. I love it. It sounds like it. It sounds so. Here I have two questions so far. First of all, one is about your career, which is, did you have any thoughts of I have a goal of getting to this, or were you just sort of like, I'm on a ride and I'm going to see where it goes?
Well. Once I got on the lot and was working as a sound editor, and by the way, I was never a picture editor. I never graduated to that. It was
okay.
But I learned a lot from working with the editors. Like, why?
Sure.
This fucking director doesn't know why do you say that, Fred? Look, he brings a guy here, and then he gets to the next day. He doesn't bring him through the door, and I can't get whatever. And so I learned how to tell stories through pictures.
Yeah.
And But to answer your question, I don't think I got the fantasy of wanting to be a producer and a director once I was a little deeper into being an associate producer. Like I said, I'd be on the set and I'd see Corey Allen, who was a director, and he's crying because they're doing a scene about this old lady who got beat up, and I'm thinking, shit, like. I was moved by that. Like, he's working with this woman, and he's in it, and he's crying, and I was like, I want to be that guy. I want to do that. And I struggled with it a little bit because I'm a very shy individual, and then I forced myself to take a couple of acting lessons at the workshop at the Warner Brothers Ranch. That was very hard for me. But I wanted to understand how to talk to actors. In fact, I did that when I was a loop editor, because I was dealing with these actors, and we would talk about stuff, and I'd be like, I don't know that I quite understand what they're talking about, So
I don't know if you remember this, but the summer before I directed, which was in season 5, I met with you, and I said, I don't know what I don't know. What like how do I prepare for this or whatever? And you said, the best thing I can tell you is to go take acting lessons. And I took acting lessons all summer with Ivana Chubbuck. Eric LaSalle put in a call for me, and I was horrible, and it was terrible and one of the worst experiences of my life. But I learned more in that than probably anywhere. And I didn't realize you had the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it's really important.
Great advice.
To be honest with you, like, I don't think other directors and young directors, like, I don't know about lenses. I said, you don't have to know about lenses. Just tell the DP and the operator what you want it to, what it feels like to you. What does it smell like to you? They'll find the lenses, and then they'll have you approve it. You don't have, and then, then over the years you get a little bit of a knowledge, and which can be dangerous. But you know, you can't worry about it. You don't know what you don't know.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. There's one other question I have about back then, and this is just me being nostalgic and wishing I was around in that time. Although I sort of felt like on ER, I got a little taste of it, but I know it wasn't like you. Was there less of a schism between like the actors and the crew in the sense that everybody was eating at the commissary and they weren't the sort of royalty that they are today, or was there that same? Was there as much of a difference?
Yeah, there was less of a schism. You're right. It was more of a familial. I left Columbia, and David Gerber left Columbia and took over MGM Television, and and I was an associate producer at that time on Fantasy Island, and he wanted to meet with me. He would always call me kid and he wanted me to come and run his post production. He was an independent producer. Run his post production deal. And I said to them, I'm an associate producer. I don't want to be the head of post production. I want to move on to become a producer. They said, well, come on, just meet with him. So I went down to MGM and met with David Gerber, a kid, and he was coming out of a projection room screaming at his executives. Something about dailies that he didn't like. And Peter Chernin and Jeff Sagansky worked for him. And, and they've become, they were bigwigs, eventually, still are. And he sees me, come on, kid, we're going to shitty commissary there. It was at Laird Studios, actually. It wasn't at MGM. And the next thing I know, I'm driving back to Columbia telling Seymour Friedman, the head of production, I'm going to quit Fantasy Island and go work for David. David ran the studio, so they knew, and I did. And he convinced me. But what I was going to say was, you asked about the schism. Gerber's office was on the fourth floor of the Thalberg building at MGM. MGM was a great lot, and they had a great commissary there. And I remember going there, and you go in there, and everybody knows everybody. It was just like this cool. I don't know what the adjective is, but it's just cool. And, I'd be sitting there. And then on Thursdays, they would have a board of directors meeting at the studio. I think Alan Ladd Jr. was the president of the studio. And the people on the board would come in there and have lunch in the Lion's Den. That was kind of the executive dining part of the commissary. And here would come Cary Grant, man. Cary Grant, he was older, and I got to tell you, Dave, he was one of the handsomest men you'll ever see. And he was absolutely. He was on the board, and there would be this big din, like a commissary and people having fun. Yeah. He'd come through the door, he knew everybody would walk in, and man, that thing would just quiet.
So cool. That's so cool.
So there, it was a whole different vibe. There was a reverence and a respect.
That's really cool. So back in the day on TV, obviously when I worked with you, by the time I was working with you, we got dailies on VHS, and now we have these horrible dailies online that never seem to work and whatever, but I won't go into that. Were there film dailies? I mean, for movies there were, but were there film dailies for TV?
Oh, when I was doing it, absolutely. It was on 6 1,000-foot reels, picture and track. I used to have to carry them up the stairs to the projection room. Put them in the rack for the projectionist, and then I'd look through the ports and see all the silhouetted heads of all these executives watching dailies. And I would say, at the very beginning when I started, I said, someday I want to be in that room, and I eventually was.
Yeah. So would the director come in before the day's shooting and watch dailies, or would the director just get a report back?
He would sometimes, he or she. There wasn't a lot of she's, but they would depending on what their call was, because we would run them at a certain time. Some of them would show up and see them, or Harv Bennett would send me down to the set and go tell Bernie Kowalski you did a great job. The director. So I'd be like the messenger boy. So yeah.
That's so cool. That's great. So what was the jump from associate producer into producing and directing? Was there a linear path for that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think what Gerber gave me a credit as an associate producer on a show, and then he sold another show, short-lived show, and he gave me the producer credit, and he was my mentor. That guy, as crazy as he was, man, I loved him, and he was just a real solid dude. And
that's very cool. That's amazing.
Rough. He was very rough. We used to call him, he speaks Gerberese because he's from New York. And anyway, he's the one that gave me my first credit. I think that it was,
as a producer.
As a producer. Yeah. On a show called Jack and Mike, which we shot in Chicago.
Uh-huh.
So
very cool. And so then I mean, at that point, you'd set your sights on directing, I'm assuming, like that was the goal?
Yes, because I remember being an associate producer, I'd see like the crews go out in the morning, the van go out because they were going scouting or even going on location. And I used to say to myself, I want to be the guy sitting in the front seat.
Nice.
That's the guy that I want to be.
So how did that happen?
Well, I always knew, I shot a lot of second units and inserts and, especially like being in Chicago where there wasn't a studio hovering. So the director would say, I can't shoot. Can you go shoot a car by? So I did a lot of that.
Cool.
And even as an associate producer, little things, and I would be producing these shows. They'd be short-lived, 1 year, 10 episodes, whatever. And, we couldn't hook on. And in my mind, it's like, I want to be on a show that I'm the producer on. And if it goes another year, I'm going to tell them that I want to direct one. And that's what happened. I was working for Warner Brothers, and there was a show called Homefront. And it was like a period piece. Yeah. Remember Homefront? I don't know if you anyways.
I remember it. And also you got nominated for an Emmy for that, or 2 Emmys or something like that. Right?
No, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I didn't.
You don't even know.
But anyway, we went for a year, and then they picked us up. ABC picked up the show for a second year. And I told them, David Jacobs and who was the executive producer, and the husband and wife, Bernie and Lynn, who wrote the pilot and supervised the writing. I said, I want to direct one.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a problem with that, and I did. And I directed.
And how'd that go? What was what was that like, and what was the hardest part that you didn't realize would be hard?
I'll tell you what happened was, I can't remember his name. Anyway, I prepped the show. I already knew the ADs. We worked together, whatever.
Sure.
Kyle Chandler was in that show. I don't know if you remember Kyle Chandler.
Okay. Right. Yeah, sure.
So I'm supposed to have my first day of shooting, and we're going to shoot on the set, one of our sets at Warner Brothers, the house. And I get a call that night saying Kyle was fucking around on the set and fell through the window, and he cut his head right above his eyebrow. He got 10 stitches or whatever it was.
Welcome to directing. Yeah. Okay.
So I could only shoot him from one side. All these plans I had about, like, I'm going to walk through here and he's going to come in there, talk to his mom. And so my first day, and he was in everything, and they wouldn't shut down. And I had to, vamp the whole day in terms of my angles and my little notes that I made. And it came out fine.
Yeah.
And I bawled him out. And and he was a great guy. Kyle was a great kid. He's not a kid anymore, obviously.
Yeah. A great actor too.
So the episode came out, and the title of the first episode I had my name on was called "Crazy in Love."
Okay.
And it came out pretty good. And
that's great. What was the hardest part for you? Because I got to think, editing you got down. Your coverage you need. It sounds like, working with actors is never easy, but it sounds like you sort of covered that from taking some lessons. And what was the toughest thing for you of directing, starting to direct, or wasn't there?
It wasn't that tough.
That's great.
I could make up something, but but it also occurs to me that
you were a producer on the show, so you've got that group of people who were like, we're gonna make sure you succeed, and everybody wants you to succeed, and that's fantastic. That's the way it should be. It isn't always that way, but that's great.
And then after that, I got a call from Bob Rosenbaum, who was the head of production. The show didn't go the third year. It was done.
Yeah.
We finished that. And then I get a call from Bob Rosenbaum and said, "Hey, Chris," and by the way, Les Moonves was the president of Warner Brothers then.
Yeah.
He had just took over the job. And he signed me to an overall deal, a non-writing producer. He liked the way I ran things, and because he was pretty hands-on, right? So wait,
tell me what does an overall deal mean exactly?
Like he paid me a retainer. Like
he just kept. Yeah, we'll find something for you.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll pay you regardless.
Yeah. We're just going to pay you this much money a year. You guarantee this for a year.
Good Lord, that's fantastic.
Yeah, pretty fantastic. So they called me and they said, "Hey, they inherited all these. The Lorimar became Warner Brothers was Warner Brothers. Lorimar came in. Les Moonves took over, and a lot of the executives from Warner Brothers left. It was like a merging of two studios.
Okay.
So I get a call. He says, "Hey, Chris," he says, "there's a show that we got from Amblin, Michael Crichton wrote, called EW, and they're going to make it. And this guy, this writer, John Wells, is going to, rewrite the script. It's an old script. Rewrite it and update it. Why don't you go? We'll send you the script, and you go meet. We want you to be the line producer on it.
Wait, it was called EW?
Yes. Which he wrote it. I think he wrote it in 1974 or 75, and they threw it in a drawer.
What does EW mean?
Emergency ward.
Oh, okay. All right. Good thing you changed it. Okay.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah. So I
go meet this guy John Wells and go in his office, and this guy that I knew just from being an apprentice film editor, Rod Holcomb. He was going to direct it.
Rod Holcomb.
And
fantastic.
He took a liking to me. I mean, he would talk to me if he see me riding my bike or in the golf cart, and he, big 6'4" guy.
Fantastic.
He was the associate producer at the time that I kind of met him on Wonder Woman, the Linda Carter version of. He says, "Hey, Chris, you ever want to come down to the set? You can come to the set, man."
That's great. We're Rod. So Rod sounds like he was already established. Was John an established name at that point?
I think as a writer, he was I don't know if you call. He was a writer on China Beach.
On China Beach, that's right.
And that's where he knew Rod from.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
And China Beach is one of the best pilots I've ever saw. I remember watching it on TV that Rod directed. It was pretty powerful.
I'll have to watch it. I don't think I ever saw that. Rod was such a great director.
He was a great guy. Yeah. Oh, he's like a big bear, 6'4".
I'm going to interrupt to tell you my Rod Holcomb story quickly,
sure,
because I think you'll like this. I think I've shared this before, but so season 5, it came out. The list of directors would come out, and the second half or whatever came out, and he was directing that day. And it came out, and my name was on it for episode whatever I did, 19 or whatever it was. And he comes over and he puts his hand around me and he said, "You're directing." And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "Well, I didn't know if it was going to happen, and I didn't, I feel a little weird about it, whatever." And he goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm so happy." He gives me a huge hug, which I'm 6'4", but when Rod hugs you kind of disappear into the. He's a massive individual. But he said, "Listen, a couple of days from now, I got a scene with Eric LaSalle and this other woman, and you're directing it." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I'm going to ask Eric, make sure it's okay and whatever. I'll be here, but you're going to direct it." And I said, and he goes, "No, we're going to get you in the seat, and you're going to do it, and it's going to be fine." And I said, "Well, okay, but should we talk about it?" He goes, "No, you read it. You know what you're doing. You tell me how to. Well, that's what we'll do." And sure enough, that's what he did. And I would look over at him, and he'd go, "Don't look at me. You're the director. Are you happy with that?" And I go, "Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Are you happy?" And
Wow.
I went over to him I went over to him quietly, and I said, listen, you got to tell me if you got to tell me if I'm not giving you what you need, or I don't know what, I don't know what you want and whatever. And he goes, Dave, I'd be telling you if you're doing anything that's getting into trouble. You're doing a great job. Keep going. Get in there with your. It was so amazing of him, like so magnanimous. It was just such a wonderful guy.
Well,
Amazing.
Amazing. That sounds like Rod.
Yeah. But so you walk in and these guys are there and they're doing EW.
Yeah, we're doing EW, and John, John's at the dry erase board and he's writing, because he had to rewrite the whole, update it and change stuff, and Rod was in there with him. So we sit down and we talk, and they said, "Did you read the script?" Yeah, I think it's pretty good. Blah blah blah. Yeah, we're going to change this, we're going to change that, but yeah, it's going to basically be. And so John says to me, "Do you have any ideas of where?" And the pilot, it was all in the ER. I mean, he says, "You have any ideas for a location where we could shoot this?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I do, actually." I said, "The old Linda Vista Hospital in East LA. I just shot there, as a line producer. I just shot there on Homefront because it's supposed to be a period hospital, right?" So we talked a little bit about this, and I think I asked him what the budget was or whatever. We're talking and just kind of yucking it up. And I went back to my office and I called Bob Rosenbaum and I said, "Hey, I met I know Rod." I said, you don't need me on this show as a producer. I said, the whole thing's shot in a hospital. I'll be tits on a bull. Rod Holcomb, who's a producer in his own right, is directing the thing. He's a force. I said, I'm not, what am I going to do?
What am I doing? Yeah.
Yeah. So he says, well, they hemmed and hawed. And then they called me back and he said, Chris, you're right. He says, we're just going to hire a good production manager. Let the production manager kind of move the strips around. And you're right. He said, okay, great. So I said, good. And about 3 or 4 days later, he calls me and he says, hey, you seem to like this guy, John Wells, pretty good. ABC just picked up the pilot that he co-wrote with Wendy Goldman. It's kind of a dramedy. He said, we want to shoot it non-union. We want to shoot it in Portland, Oregon. And I'm like, oh, fuck. So, all right. So he says, go back and talk to John, and you guys see what's going on. So I did. Went back and talked to him. I read the script, talked to him. So the pilot was kind of a dramedy, right? And so Peter Riegert was in it, Jane Curtin.
Wow.
William H. Macy. And,
oh my gosh, he was probably 20 at that point or something.
Yeah,
like that.
young dude. And a guy named Rob Thompson was going to direct it. Anyway, long story short, I went to Portland. I prepped it. John would fly up there. Well, they were shooting ER or EW down here. And he would come up and visit the set. And he'd bring me a cassette of dailies, Rod's dailies.
Yeah.
And anyway, we shot the pilot. And we were done, edited it, everything. John was kind of done with the ER, and I was going to go to Hawaii, take a vacation, and then with my family and my 2 daughters. And I got a call the morning before we were leaving, or the night before we were leaving, and it's John. And he says, "Hey, Chris, they didn't pick up Mystery Dance. It didn't get picked up." I said, okay, well, he says, nice working with you, man. I really appreciate it. We'll see you on the lot. Yeah. So I go to Hawaii. And I think 2 days after I was in Hawaii, no cell phones. I don't know how, but I got a message. Yeah. Call John Wells. I was renting a house. And I call him and he says, hey, Chris, he says, they picked up ER, called ER now. He says, they picked it up for 9 episodes. We're going to need a real producer to produce it. He says, we'll build a set. He says, but NBC doesn't really like it. He says, so we'll build a set. Let's have some fun. And, and it'll be 9 and out. But I want you to come. I said, okay. That's a quote. That really happened over the phone.
9 and out.
Yeah, I said,
Yeah.
can you send me send me a cassette of the whole pilot? And he says,
Yeah.
yes, they did. So I looked at it and got back, and we took over Stage 11 and began the work of hiring a production designer and cameraman.
Yeah.
Which the Tom Del Ruth started it, but he didn't. He was gone.
He was there for an episode, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how it was.
Well, so the thing that I don't understand is ER was like the story that I always heard was that ER, when they put it out and when they aired the pilot, is that it was just in a couple of markets, and during the commercial breaks, people were calling stations because friends had called them saying you should watch this, and it just exploded. Right? Is that apocryphal or is that real?
Yeah, I think I don't know that part of the story. I remember it. The pilot premiered against Monday Night Football. Okay. And then they reran it on the following Thursday. But against Monday Night Football, I got a 32 share.
Which is huge. And just can you explain 32 share means theoretically 32 million households are watching.
Well,
it,
pretty
right?
close. It's broken up a little bit. But there's ratings and shares. Rating is how many televisions in America who has TVs that were on were watching that.
Yes.
And then the share of that audience. So,
but for people who don't know, from what I understood, before ER, a hit was considered like maybe a 9 share or a 10 share, and things didn't really go bigger than that unless there was some big like Super Bowl thing, right?
Well, a hit would be like a 17 or 20 share.
Okay, it's a little higher than I thought.
It's a little higher.
But this is through the roof.
This is getting a 30 share. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I was there, I remember it never dipped below a 40 share. I mean, it was a 40 share and plus, or the ratings maybe.
When I got the show set up, the production part of it, I directed episode 17. Because it just took we had to keep, and we were under pressure for doing the show on time and on budget, and totally on budget. They were really strict because it was a nine order. Nobody thought, it could, and they wouldn't let us spend any money. Shit, I was like, well, should we recycle the latex gloves? Because you guys are using too much blood. We can't afford to buy it by the gallon, whatever.
Even though it was that big of a hit, they were still.
No. This is before we aired.
Before that. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I got you. Okay.
Yeah, remember,
of course.
We got to shoot for 5 months.
That's right. I forgot that. So they don't know. But the question that I have is, how did they get it so wrong? Because they were thinking it was going to be a dog, and it turned out to be this massive hit.
It just happened. Chicago Hope was supposed to be the hit. This was just a blood and guts, whatever, Yeah. And it flipped television. It was a silver bullet, man. It didn't take that long. When I directed the first episode that year that I directed, it was episode 17. I remember the number. It got a 40 share. Nobody ever got a 40 share.
That's insane. That's absolutely amazing.
And the second year, episode 7 was the Hell and High Water episode.
Yeah,
that got a 45 share.
One of the best pieces of television ever made, hands down, just unbelievable. Now I'm going to go back to something, but while we're on that, did you read that and realize that it was something special, or was it a process that turned it into something?
I would say that I read it and was like, it was the first time we were, it was a different show. We were outside the hospital with George saving that kid, and it was just different. And I remember thinking like, I just got to make this real and just don't worry about a different rhythm, So, I mean, that would be the difference. I just didn't want to screw it up.
You didn't. Anybody who hasn't seen Hell and High Water, you should watch it. It holds up and it's fantastic. But backing up a little bit, so you mentioned that there was a DP operator team that sort of started the show and lasted an episode or two, and then there were some changes made, and then Guy B comes in.
I was thinking I got to bring in a new Steadicam operator because Steadicam became an integral part of it. If you look at Rod's pilot, he didn't use it evolved. How do you do 10 pages a day. Well, you don't. You just got to keep them talking and shoot a winner.
Keep moving.
And some people say that necessity is the mother of invention. I say necessity is just a mother, and that's how it happened.
Yeah, that's fantastic. But so Guy told me that the reason that he got the job was because you saw a tape where he walked underneath a ladder in a shot. Do you remember this?
That's true. It's absolutely true.
Can you share that?
Yeah. I was looking at tapes I was being sent, people auditioning on tape. And I remember seeing his tape and a lot of the shots he did. But he did this, I don't know. And I remember looking at him and I'm thinking, this guy's a little skinny guy. And he just did this thing through a ladder with the Steadicam. And, I don't have to tell you, it was film in the magazine. That shit was heavy, man. Yeah, you probably have some compression discs because of that.
I got a couple I can show you some x-rays of. Yep.
Oh, sure. So I talked to him and I liked his personality and he was amazing. That dude was amazing. He was he was incredible. Yeah. He was a ballerino with a device stuck to him.
Now, when he came in, was it just right off the bat? Well, I mean, it wasn't your episode, but you were obviously around. Was it right off the bat that he just stepped in and took the ball and sort of pushed it farther, or was it the director doing it?
It was a little bit of an evolution. Like he got the feel of it and he learned the set and then I think directors kind of said, well, I could really kind of push the envelope here with this guy, and I think it just kind of found itself.
Yeah. I mean, just the stuff that he did was groundbreaking, and what was amazing to me watching it as a viewer at home was, we'd never seen Steadicam on television like that before. Nope. Like occasionally in a movie you'd get something, but that was a big deal, and this was just. And then I don't know if you know this, but so the way I met Guy was that AOL used to have a Steadicam chat room, and really? I was on there and I saw bvision at AOL.com or something like that. I'm like, I wonder if this is him. And I said, or texted him, whatever you called it. I IM'd him. I don't know. And I said, are you Guy B, ER? Yeah. And I said, oh man, just, you don't know me and blah, blah, blah. But, the stuff you're doing, I can't even comprehend it. It's incredible. And then I happened to be eating Twizzlers, and I texted him something about how I was sitting there eating Twizzlers after watching ER, and Red Vine sucked and something or other funny, and he thought it was funny, and he said, hey, you should come down to ER sometime and come visit the set. And I'm like, what, like on the lot? Are you kidding me? Yeah, and he says, yeah, I'll leave a pass for you and blah, blah, blah. And we figured out a time. And I remember Charles Pappard and I went by, and this is the internet existed, but it was pre what we have now. And I go in there and, we're like, hey, we're here to see Guy B. And they took us in over by the director's monitor. And we're standing there. And this little guy with long hair and a headband and rock and roll pants. Hey, man, how you doing? It's good to meet you. And whatever. He's like, oh, okay, hang out here. I got to go do a little shot, and walks away. And he goes and he puts the Steadicam on, and we're watching the monitor. And you remember it used to come in and go out. It was terrible. And you saw half of it. But it was just the most unbelievable thing we'd ever seen. I mean, both of our jaws were open, and then he comes back and he's like, so how's it going? Like nothing had happened. He was really unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so what did it become when you were directing with him? So it sounds like you didn't direct until 17 on the first season. So it sounds like you. I
directed in Chicago. We made 4 trips a year to Chicago.
That's right. Okay.
And we never shut down here. We would shuttle the actors back and forth. So I was shooting, Chicago scenes, exteriors. Yeah. And then I felt comfortable. We got the pickup for the back 9, and then I told John, and I said, just pencil me in. And I said, okay.
Yeah. So you were. That's what I was getting to. Is you were sort of watching from the sidelines the evolution of how they were shooting the show and what he was capable of, and how they were pushing it, and et cetera, et cetera. Did that start to change the way that you were starting to see the scripts that you were when you were directing? I mean, did you start seeing that in a whole different light?
I don't know. I mean, the scripts got shorter because the scripts got longer because we had to film it. Yeah, because it happened so fast. I don't know. again, I think it's just the evolution. I mean, we knew the energy was good. We had a practice of everybody coming to dailies. We watched them together, everybody.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, in a little conference room. And that's something that I brought to it, like, because I was always taught by Gerber, you come and watch dailies, you got to know what's going on. So I said to John,
when you say everyone, you mean the director and the editor and the producers and the writer
even a couple of the actors if they wanted to, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic.
I mean, that it eventually fell off a little bit, but
yeah, of course, yeah,
but yeah.
Yeah, well, and also like then everybody's at a certain point, everybody starts getting their video cassettes and they say, no, I'll watch it at home, but whatever. I mean, one of the things that when I showed up blew me away was how much, and this is all Guy and you guys, obviously, was sort of how much freedom you gave the operator to be involved in the storytelling. And
you're absolutely right. That's what I always preached, even before I started directing. I said, you got to, if you're going to operate, you got to tell a story. You got to be part of this. You got to be an actor in the scene. You know, and Guy did that really well, and the actors were very comfortable with him. And I would talk to him. They say, I didn't even know he was there. You know, because he knew how to get in and out. And we just. Do these trauma scenes, and every director, get a little intimidated. And I just was like, just shoot it, like set it up, told the docs, the technical advisor, set it up, and tell Guy B, it's a documentary. Just shoot a documentary.
Yeah. It was, that was one of the most special experiences. I mean, it was the highlight of my career. There's no question about it. I mean, there have been other peaks here and there, but as an overall thing, and I'll tell you, I hope you don't mind me saying, one of the people that I learned so much from was you, and working with you as a director. I remember very specifically, you told me once that to always find you another way into the scene.
Right.
And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, you got to shoot the master. And then while you're shooting the master, be thinking of the coverage and come off of something or come through something. Cause I never know when I'm going to have to upcut a scene or never know whenever. And that's something I've taken to this day of like trying to find those things. Usually I'm not on ER. So I ask, do you want this or whatever? But I remember you were always so excited when we would just find those moments. And it was such a pleasure. It was such an absolute pleasure.
It's spontaneity. That's when the magic happens, actually. That's when you just go, wow, I didn't expect that. Jesus.
100%. Yeah. And the other thing that I remember from that I sort of miss, nowadays, and this, you're looking at a better monitor than I am.
Yes.
You've got a better picture than I do. But it used to be that we were running around, and especially when we were doing the huge things and you guys were off the set or whatever, your monitor would come in and come out and come or whatever. And it wasn't what it was. And you guys would always come up to me, what'd you think? How was it? How'd we do? And there was actual trust in what we thought, much more so, I think, not denigrating anyone there. But the other thing I'll tell you that you taught me that has stayed with me to this day was that I think it was, I'm assuming, I don't remember exactly, but I'm assuming that it was before I directed at some point. But you told me to watch other directors and watch the mistakes that they made. And I said, really? And you said, yeah, because you'll see a lot more mistakes than you will successes, because successes you can't always tell in the moment.
Right.
And you'll learn not to do that.
Right.
And I thought that's brilliant.
It's true. It's true.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah.
That's what I would do. Just watch, and being a line producer, I could observe that. I saw that a lot, even before I started directing a lot. Like you can see it.
Yeah. What I got to realize was, and there were sometimes with some directors, not many of them, but sometimes where you could sort of see the train wreck coming down the road a long time before it came. Yeah. And you're trying to steer it away and you're trying to be kind and whatever, but it doesn't, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. ER was I think it's probably the biggest hit on television. I don't know that you can compare it to things now. It's a totally different, the metric is all different, but back then it was basically the biggest thing. What do you think it was that made it special?
Well, I think I think as intimate as we got in kind of some of those action sequences, and by action I mean trauma sequences, and it was really very intimate, and I think people, they put their nose in it, and they were like, wow, I've never seen anything like this. And some of it, it's like a car wreck, you can't take your eyes off of it, sometimes. And I think that had a lot to do with it, and just the rhythm of it. And it was just honest. There was no opera, it was just interesting people with interesting jobs dealing with the public and how it affects them and their peers and each other. And the stories weren't huge stories, but they meant something, I used to tell the actors, like the guest actors, like you're in the ER. A guest star or whatever. And for you, it's the most dramatic day of your life, being in an ER. And for them, it's Thursday. For them, it's Thursday.
That's great. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. No, that's dead on. Do you remember, I don't remember this, but would guest stars come in and be intimidated by it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when you're doing a 7-page oneer and they have the last line in the scene,
the worst thing in the world.
That's the worst thing in the world. And George Clooney's looking at you like, really?
Yeah. We just did all that. Yeah. But I will tell you, I remember this didn't happen much, but I remember once or twice a guest actor coming in and maybe being a little surly with the crew or not being the nicest person or whatever. And they got walked outside by number 1 or number 2 or whoever was and they came back in a couple minutes later and, oh, I'm so sorry I didn't sleep well last night. I apologize if we took that wrong. Like it was one of the few places that I've ever been where we were such a tight knit family, and it was across the board. It was such a wonderful place to be. And also I was 25 to 28 or 26 to 29 or whatever. So like the place where I was in my career, it was an amazing experience all the way around.
Yeah. We were lucky to have Tony and George, they were the 2 leaders, and they realized, when the show's a hit that, it could go south with the egos. Right. And John Wells said something really, which I think was, he said, our cast is a self-cleaning oven. They don't allow things to fester. If they got an internal problem, they deal with them. And they took charge. I mean, as a group, and that was Tony and George.
Did that just happen, or was that something they discussed and said, this is how we want it to be?
I think a little bit of both. Again, like we had discussions like that, and got to know each other, and those guys are pretty open. They were good, and they were pros.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, Tony was going to be a movie star, and George had 7 failed pilots, so he was pretty well experienced, right?
Including one called Emergency, I think, actually, as I recall. But I'll tell you, it dates it a little bit, but I remember very specifically George coming in and going, get the VCR out here, everybody stop, you got to see this, And we're like, what? And he goes, I'm not going to say anything, you just got to put, and he puts it in, and it's the video cassette of Jesus versus Santa Claus that they sent out as the Christmas card to everybody. and it's funny because I try to explain to people now, it's like now there's irreverent animation, but there wasn't anything. I mean, like that was on a level. And I just remember everybody watching it going, I don't understand. What is this? It was and as soon as it was over, it was like, play it again. Yeah. And actually, the other thing I remember very well is George coming in probably around Christmas time, and he's like, "You guys aren't going to believe what Warner Brothers just gave me." And we're like, "What?" And we're like, "He goes, is this thing, and the tray opens, and you put a CD in it, and you can watch a movie, but you can pop around from scene to scene just with a click of a button." We're like, "You can't do that. That's bullshit." He's like, right. "No, seriously, it's called like a DVC or I don't know what it, but I got like 2 of them, and it's amazing."
Right?
Yeah, those were good times. The other thing I think about is like, I don't think it would have been the same place if we had iPhones.
No, I think you're right.
Right. Like it's just that's gone. That's sort of like, nope, we're all, maybe someone's doing a crossword or something like that, but otherwise we're just talking to each other and looping things up and having a good time. I agree.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you during that you started Third Watch in New York, which you directed. You directed the pilot for, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about directing a pilot, because it's got to be a whole different world than just jumping in and directing a train that's already, a train that's already.
Yeah,
moving.
no, it is. It's exciting because you're pounding the nails for the foundation, and you're very involved in casting and as a director, and you're hiring a crew. You're in a city. It's exciting as hell. And
is it a different skill set because it's a pilot?
No, I don't think so. You have more time. I don't think it's a skill set. I mean, I think some people are better at it than others. They have a little longer outlook or vision. But I don't necessarily say it's. Yeah, I think it's the same process. It's a craft. It's like you tell the best story you can tell, and you decide whose point of view you want to tell it from, or what kind of a point of view you want to give it. And at least on Third Watch it was a lot of fun too, because we had real firemen and real cops as part of the deal.
I was going to ask you about that because I was out there. I operated for a little bit, and then you were gracious enough to give me an episode to direct, so I was there for that. And did you take that from ER? Because on ER we had the real nurses, right, who helped with the traumas, and were they all into it from the start, just because it was of what it was?
I don't know if they were all into it at the start. They eventually loved, it became a family. In fact, to me, it was the precursor to the way I did Southland, and. They were all real cops, all real gangsters.
Really?
Oh yeah.
We didn't know that.
We would do scenes where we'd be on the set in Echo Park or whatever. There's a scene where the cops are arresting these cholos or whatever, and they'd come to the set and cop would say, "Hey, didn't I arrest you last month, man?" I say you did. I say.
So were they actors as well, or they were just people who were real gangsters? Who you said,
it was the look. They were on set, and then we gave them lines. I gave Richard Cabral, who's an actor now and had his own one-man show. Yeah. I gave him his first line, and I could hear him breathing through the headphone. Now he's a very cool dude, man, and he got out of the whole gang thing, and it's good. It's good.
That's amazing.
But on Third Watch, they came to love us because we were doing the right thing and trying to portray cops and the firemen and paramedics real. And,
so was that sort of a trust thing that was built over time? Like at first it's like, I don't know about this. And then once they started to see it on the air and see that you were being reverent of what they're doing, I guess is the word. Yeah.
And, New Yorkers are smart, man. They could smell phony a mile away. So no, we it was really wonderful, and they were all into it.
And was it a different experience shooting in New York because you're not in Warner Brothers with with mom and dad around, sort of, and you're kind of your own satellite?
Yeah, it was pretty raw. I mean, but again, it lent itself to the show. Because it was real. It was all real. We were going down Fifth Avenue, man, and we were going here, we were going there, and right. So
the thing that I liked about shooting there, which it was the first time I'd ever shot in New York, it was just so different than LA. Because LA, it's like there's a reverence for sort of like people, filming and whatever. In New York, people are like, I don't really care.
Yeah,
I gotta get to work. Get the hell out of my way.
No, I think that's well put. That's well put. There's no reference.
Well, but it's Dustin Hoffman. I'm walking here. I mean, that's 100% what it was. And they just didn't give a crap. The other thing that I really liked about coming over to Third Watch was just the characters in your crew. They were just consummate New Yorkers and such great people. And interestingly, and I don't know if this comes from you or not, but it reminded me very much of like the family atmosphere on ER, where everybody took care of each other and everybody was together. So I got to assume some of that leaks in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would always say to the crew on a lot of levels, again, being a producer and being in the trenches, own it. This is your show. Own it. The star of the show is the show.
So Guy B told me that when I interviewed him. He said, Chris Chulack always used to say this. And I had never heard that. And I said, that is the most brilliant piece of advice, directing, whatever you want to call it. It's fantastic because everything else falls away, right? It's just like, nope, it's what's going on screen in the story we're telling. And that's what's important. I love that. I think that's fantastic. It's funny because until you said it and started to say it, I had forgotten you said that because I would have asked you about it, but you brought it up naturally. Yeah. So you went on to do Southland, which was Southland's just, it's another great show. And it's sort of like controlled chaos.
Exactly.
In a way. Yeah. And
that's exactly right.
Jimmy Muro shot a lot of that, right?
Yeah, Jimmy Muro shot the pilot for me. I didn't know Jimmy. I didn't know him.
I mean, another unbelievable. The fact that you ran into Guy B and Jimmy Muro in one career. Jimmy's amazing. And I was told that he would just sort of grab the camera and run around with it, which wouldn't surprise me at all because that's who he is.
It eventually, that kind of evolved a little bit, but yeah.
That's amazing. Was it a good show, a fun show to shoot?
Oh yeah. We weren't on a lot. We had you know where Homeboys Inc. is downtown? The bakery.
Great organization.
Right. Well, we used a lot of those guys, gangsters that were in that program. We had a parking lot right there in Chinatown, which was our permanent base camp. So you didn't go to the studio. You went to this base camp. All the trailers were there for the actors. You get in and go to the location. And didn't come back till the day was over. Everything was on location. Wow. We didn't build any sets. Everything was practical.
Wow.
Yeah. It was exciting.
It sounds to me like, as we're talking about this, that you sort of excel and enjoy not having sort of preconceived things that you have to be, be a part of as far as the studio and whatever, and just having the freedom to go, no, this works better or that way. Let's just do this and let's just do that.
That's right. Spontaneity.
I guess, like you said, the star of the show is the show. So if it works, it works.
Right. And the show was, my idea for the show, the Southland was my conceit. We knew that it was the last year of ER. And I remember sitting on John Wells' front porch, just having a Christmas party. And ER was going to go away. He says, so what do you want to do? I said, I don't know. He said, maybe it's time we do that police show you want to do in Los Angeles. Because I would always think, like, what happened to Police Story? Why we go to Chicago, we go to New York, we do all these cop shows. What about Los Angeles? It's my town. And I said, I want to do a version of Cops. That's how I want to tell the story,
okay.
And audience doesn't go in the bad guy's lair until the cops bring us in there. These are first responders. They don't know what's in there. I don't want the audience to know what's in there.
It's great.
And it was just a way of that. And I think that gave the show a personality that nobody really had seen before. I mean, I would watch an episode of Cops, and I know that they got a sound guy and a cameraman in the back, and they're on a chase, and then, the cop would get out to chase the guy, and they'd get out, and, I could hear the lavalier mic on the cop, his heart's beating fast, and you couldn't even hear the bad guy, and I'm like, that's what I want to do. It's so raw.
Yeah.
I don't have to go to the ADR stage. I don't care if I hear him or not, Anyway, so that was the conceit of the show.
I love that. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, it certainly comes through. I mean, it's like I said, it's raw. It's just fantastic. Yeah. And then the last thing that you were doing, that you were the executive producer on, I think, was Navy SEALs. Is it Navy SEALs? No.
Yeah.
SEAL team.
Yeah.
And so how did that come about as far as coming up with a style for that? Because it would seem like one of the things. If it was me, I'd go, well, I've done that. What am I going to do now? I don't want to just redo something.
Well, I think a lot of what we did on SEAL Team was derivative of Southland.
Yeah.
Because, in terms of the action part of it.
Because it works.
Because it works. because it works.
Yeah.
So, you don't want to be in Afghanistan and show the audience that, before these SEALs break into this house.
How many seasons did you do that?
7.
Amazing. And so before we were talking, you were saying that recently you've been on a show where you've just been the director for hire as opposed to the executive producer or whatever. What's the good in that and what's the bad in that?
Well, I can't say we're building it. I'll cut money out somewhere else.
You got to work within a system that you don't control. Yeah,
that's true. And they're all great people, and it's Studio 101, Taylor Sheridan's group, and they're a big group. They've got a lot of shows, and they're all nice guys.
Absolutely, but is there something good in it in that you can go in and go, yeah, I can see that. That's not my problem. That's probably for the next episode. Like you can walk away from it and go, I'm just doing this little piece of it.
Yeah, no, there's a little bit of that. Sure. I mean, it's got to be that way. You can't control everything. So okay, you guys tell me what you want to do.
So asking you specifically about, there's one other thing I want to ask you is the 4 shows that I sort of think of you with. You've been involved in so many more, but ER, Third Watch, SEAL Team, and Southland, they all revolve around people who are public service isn't the right word, but they're in, I don't know what you call that, but they're helping people or whatever. On some level. Is there some through story to that means something to you, or is that just happenstance? Or
I think it's funny. You're right. I don't know. Maybe I am attracted to that kind of dynamic. Where it's just not. I mean, look, I did a pilot. It only lasted 7 episodes with Ray Liotta called Smith that John wrote. And it was about this guy Smith. He's a criminal, but he works making paper cups, and he's got this whole clan, and they go rob art, expensive art or whatever. And it was just really, but it was a really different thing for me. I mean, it was like very kind of studied and artful, and dynamic shots, and and I like that too. I mean, so I don't know. Maybe we're just, I don't know. These ensemble casts, the Southlands, the SEAL teams, the Third Watches. I don't know. Maybe there's something about them that I am attracted to. The group, the family.
It seems like it, yeah. Well, or at least let me put it this way: you're definitely good at it. So, if nothing else, you pull it off well. Yeah,
you're very good.
Can you think back to a situation where an operator really changed something that you were trying to do and made it into something better?
All the time. I mean, I couldn't pick one huge thing, but it happens all the time.
And that's something that you do you expect it?
I would, yeah. I mean, if the person's capable,
yeah.
And like I said earlier, if he owns it, own it. What's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen? I say, I don't like that. Let's redo it. That's why.
This is why I always loved working with you, because it was like it was like, all right, so we got to do that again. But we tried something. Better to swing and miss than never to swing at all, right?
That's right. That's right.
I love it. Absolutely. I wanted to ask you, what's the worst part of being a directing producer, and what's the best part?
It's always the best part. There is no worse. There's no worse.
Okay. So just the entire thing.
It's only the best.
That's fantastic.
It's what I said to you earlier. It's like, how did I get here?
Yeah. Well, it does sort of seem like in your story, you're just sort of surfing the wave and going, yeah, I guess I'll do that and I'll do that. I mean, the fact that you basically turned down EW, which, by the way, everybody would have called you and would have been a terrible, terrible idea. So I don't know who came up with that change, but thank you for that.
It was, I guess, in the 70s, they didn't know, I don't know. Did they used to call ERs EWs? I don't know.
I mean, since I've been, it was ER, but they must have. But it just sounds like you sort of just were like, I'm going to embrace every opportunity that comes and make it something better. And it's impressive to listen to. There's no question about it.
Oh, thanks.
Is there something that an operator can do that you think is a cardinal sin?
I think I've had an occasion to have an operator talk to an actor in the scene, like after the scene, and you don't do that. I mean, there's one voice on the set when you're talking about performance, or I'm not talking about technically, like, oh, you've got to hit that mark or whatever.
Yeah.
But critiquing it and you just don't do that.
Yeah, giving feedback on a performance as opposed to going, hey, when you round that corner, can you open up the door a little faster?
I don't personally like that.
Yeah. I totally get it, but that's why I ask, because it's always good to hear from the people who are upstairs to figure that out. I think I asked you beforehand, before this, if you read it, 5 movies that you think that every camera operator should see, or five important movies that you think people should see.
I think Heat was a movie that I remember visually. I remember that
Jimmy Muir.
That's right. That's Jimmy.
Oh my God, unbelievable.
Yeah. I would say the both Godfathers. I know that they're very different, but the imagery, that shit just didn't happen, right?
Yeah. Wait, can I interrupt for a second? I like the fact that you said both Godfathers as if there are only 2 movies, because I really appreciate that. We're gonna pretend the third one didn't exist. God bless him, but thank you.
I was disappointed, man.
Yeah, a lot of us were. Okay, go on.
French Connection.
Oh, yeah. Brilliant.
Right?
The chase sequences, amazing.
Oh yeah. Again, those things just don't happen. You got to.
I have to say, I sort of wish people would sometimes bring back the zooming that they used to do in the 1970s, because there was some cool stuff back when they would do that.
I agree with you.
It's
I
great.
agree with you.
Yeah, when used correctly. Yeah.
Apocalypse Now.
Okay, fantastic.
And The Deer Hunter.
Oh, that's a list right there. Phenomenal. Now actually makes me want to go watch The Deer Hunter again. Just amazing. I also wanted to ask you about, from a directing point of view, working with actors. What do you? Is there any advice you can give to someone who hasn't done that as much anymore? Because like we talked about earlier, when you came into directing, that was probably the one thing that you'd done the least, I would assume, is working on that level with actors. Are there any absolute do nots or thoughts that you have that you can pass on that level?
I think you got to judge actors for who they are and be true to them and listen to them. But at some point, you got to say, no, this is the way we're going to do it, or this is the way I want. And not fight about it. And if they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. But you got to just have ears for what they're trying to say to you. If it's something they don't understand, or why would I say that, which is a stupid thing. You know why? Because it's on the script that you getting paid.
So you're getting paid.
So you got to pick and choose, your battles. And but I think most of the time actors want to be directed. I really do. Yeah. I really believe that.
Tommy Shalami once told me that he said, when you run into an actor who's tough with you and problematic and like sometimes we've seen, he said, I always remember that that's an extremely scared individual, and I don't know what they're scared of, but they're scared of something or other, and that changes the way that I deal with them. And I always thought that was really fascinating.
You can have creative differences as long as that's all there is. But if somebody's being unprofessional, fuck them.
All right, that's the T-shirt right there. That's what I thought. But I couldn't agree with you more, because there's a total difference between going, I see it this way and I see it that way, and being an asshole. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
That's great. That is great. I would be remiss if I finished this interview without asking you a little bit about Richard Thorpe. who was the director of photography on ER when I was there, and is maybe the single biggest character I've ever met in my life. I don't like. Did you guys know each other before ER? Or?
Yeah, I met him on a pilot. He was an operator on a pilot I did. I forget where. When I think it was when I was working. Yeah. Wow. I don't remember specifically, but I met him. And then when we were looking for a cameraman for ER, John had met him or worked with him. I said, Richard Thorpe? He goes, yeah, I know Richard Thorpe. I said, what about him? So we brought him in and we talked to him, and genius. Remember, he
genius. Genius. It looks looks like an album cover, more like a manhole cover. He had more sayings, and he was the most fascinating guy. And it was so interesting because on exterior, he was kind of like this gruff guy. And then when you got to know him, he was the most wonderful, open-hearted person. I don't think he wanted people to know that, but he was just very well. He was
very, very well read.
Yeah,
he's very smart.
Brilliant. You have it? Can you share one good story about Richard Thorpe?
No.
From your time with him?
No.
All right, fair enough. I gotta try to get him on the podcast sometime, but I don't know if they have phone lines up in Nova Scotia or wherever he has his bunker. Well, listen, Chris, this has been an unbelievable treat for me. You, like I said, I can't tell you, you probably don't know it, but you had a tremendous impact on my career and my learning, my education as a storyteller, with the little bits and pieces that I took off you when we were shooting and just through osmosis. So I thank you for that. And I thank you for this. And your story is just, it's fantastic to listen to. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. You made it easy, David. I appreciate it.
So I'm going to leave you with my final question, which I leave everybody with, and you can take us out. Advice for someone getting in the business today on how to succeed, and or something you learned along the way that you wish you knew earlier that you know now.
I would say you got to really make sure if you take a step, if you put your toe in the pool of show business, you got to really know what you want to do, and you got to love it, because there's a lot of rejection. It's very competitive, but you got to persevere, and you got to do the work. You have to do the work. If you don't do the work, you don't deserve it. And, it's like I said, it's very competitive. And that's the biggest advice. There's no path. I often get asked, like, how should I? So you got to do it your own way. I know that sounds scary. I'm not being evasive. You just got to keep going. And I can't tell you got to talk to this person, talk to that person. It doesn't kind of work that way. Everybody, look at my story. I didn't go to film school, I kind of wish I had, in a way, because what I didn't have early on was connections. I would be on the lot and people would know each other because they went to film school together. They didn't really know any more than I did, but they had that camaraderie and connections. And I think that makes it a little easier. And, but there's no pattern, no path. You just got to get in there and and you may change what you want to do once you get exposed to certain situations. That's all I can say about that.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening and have a great day.